Hi, everyone. Today, we've got a special episode for you as Neta Meidav, CEO and co-founder of Vault Platform, and Erica Salmon Byrne, Chief Strategy Officer of Ethisphere, discuss some exciting news for the ethics economy. Welcome to the Ethicast.
Hi, everybody. I am sitting in for my friend Bill Coffin today for this very special episode of the Ethicast. I'm delighted to have Neta with me to talk about our partnership and more specifically, why we think the time for this partnership is now. So, Neta, I'm just going to dive right in because you and I could talk for hours on this topic, as anybody who has attended any of our webinars knows well. Why now? Neta, from your perspective, why do we need a different standard on speak up investigations?
We know that employees are not speaking up, not at the volume that they should be. They're not surfacing enough ethical problems and ESG breaches and code of conduct breaches to the knowledge of ethics teams.
Mm-hmm.
And we need a new standard because we know that investigation teams, the Office of the Chief Compliance Officer, the Office of the Chief Ethics Officer, are struggling with aging technology and with lacking digital infrastructure to run a process that puts the human in the center of this experience.
Yeah. And Neta, I'm so glad that you ended your comment with that particular phrase, because that's part of the reason why I was attracted to working with Vault in the first place, was that idea that, at Ethisphere, we call them employee-centered investigations, right? It's an employee-centered process. You put the employee at the center of the investigations process and the speak up process. And I think it's a different way of thinking about it. For so long, the attitude of a lot of organizations is everybody's silent, so everything's fine, right? Everything must be fine because nobody's saying anything.
Yeah.
Instead of interrogating that activity and saying, well, wait a second, do we actually know that everything's fine, right? We've called the hotline to make sure it gets answered, but have we ever stepped back and asked ourselves, does anybody want to use this? Is this the way we raise concerns, really? And that is such a disservice to an organization that at the end of the day really needs to know what's going on so they can fix it. That's the point of all of this, right? Is people having an easy way of raising their hand and saying, I saw something that wasn't right, I need help, right? And then the company having a way that they can respond to in those moments.
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it, Erica. I think that for too long, the approach has been incredibly passive to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
We've been focusing for a very long time on the investigation process and mechanisms. And this is incredibly important and certainly something that we tackle ourselves technologically at Vault Platform. We believe we need to put the best tools, mechanisms, the best digital infrastructure in the hands of investigation teams. But it all starts and ends with, do people actually come forward and report? Because if they don't report, you have nothing to investigate, or you have a very low volume to investigate.
Yep.
And when your approach, when your tool reflects a passive attitude towards this. So let's just put this number out there on a poster somewhere and hang it in the cafeteria or bury it in the code of conduct or code of ethics of the company. You get passive speak up, you get a passive compliance culture,
Mm-hmm.
you get a passive culture.
Yeah.
And the outcome of that, as we all know, is that it hurts people, it hurts companies, it hurts reputation, it hurts bottom line. And we live in a world today where no one wants to find out they have a problem because of a story in the media or a lawsuit, or because the regulators are knocking on someone's door.
That's
we
right.
want to create a culture where our people trust us to come forward and report.
Yeah.
And so for that, we need the appropriate modern tooling.
That's right. That's exactly right. And we see it in our culture data side of the equation, Neta. We see it all the time. If you look at the generational data, right, we know that the young members of our workforce don't trust the system and feel very uncomfortable coming forward. And we also know that people of all generations would talk to a person. And the harder we make it for that person to tell us what's happening, the less likely we are to see issues brought up in a period of time where it's easy to resolve them, right? As I like to remind companies, with the DOJ's focus on voluntary self-disclosure,
Yes.
you can't voluntarily self-disclose what you don't know. And so if your people aren't bringing you concerns, then you are not going to be able to address those issues in the fashion you need to. And, as we're starting to see now, TikTok is waiting. We're seeing employees put issues up on TikTok, and that is the absolute last way that you want somebody to do.
The last way, absolutely. And our approach, Erica, which I know that is something that very much resonated with Ethisphere and with you when we started our conversation. Our approach at Vault was, let's listen to the real pain. Let's not just plaster our way with a solution based on what the regulation, what SOX requires us to do, or or the EU whistleblower directive requires us to do. Let's actually listen to the real pain and the real issues that are raised by these two groups that we are trying to serve, right? You have two sides of the equation. You have your employees, your customers, so to speak, and you have another type of customer, which is the compliance office, the investigation, the corporate investigation team. Let's try to truly, double click on what is their existing problem today. So we start listening, and I know this is a work that you've been doing at Ethisphere as well through your culture surveys. You deep listening, re-listening to these issues. What we found on the employee side is that there is a true problem of underreporting that is driven by several major drivers. One is people don't trust a system that feels like it's too tightly linked to their employer. Secondly, people don't believe that anonymous is really anonymous. That is another fear that they have. Thirdly, especially, kind of the workforce of today, this is how we communicate.
Yep.
And the idea of calling a hotline feels very foreign to some. Then
for those of you listening along on the audio only, Neta just picked up her cell phone.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. Yes. I did.
Ubiquitous tool, right? I mean, I like to joke with my teenagers that it's essentially attached to their hand. And
exactly.
That we can rail separately against that reality, but that is the reality. And if we are going to put the employee at the center of the reporting process, we have to deal with that reality. That is how people communicate today. That is how people capture notes. That is how people take down ideas. That is how people potentially record bits and pieces of what has happened to them, right? That is just where we are. And
that is how people are being serviced, right?
Yes.
I mean, and it, we want to meet them where they are. This is now how they're used to being serviced across the organization. If they have a fault with their IT, if they are submitting for or applying for a new job within the organization, the different tech stack across their company meets them where they are through the mobile experience.
Right.
We should absolutely.
You're applying to, you're applying to take a colleague to dinner. You do it through the mobile experience. You're
100%.
putting in for time off. You're going to do it through the mobile experience.
100%. Exactly. So let's meet them where they are, and that and people then say, okay, so is technology now taking over the human experience? And to that we say, absolutely not. If anything, it only empowers the human connection. Because one of the other things that we found, we surveyed more than 3,000 of office workers, both in Europe and in the US, and we looked into their trends of reporting and underreporting. And one of the main things that they raised is that they hate the feeling of reporting something that could be very meaningful, that could have a huge impact on their career, on their well-being. It's a very sensitive experience for many, um, and one that frightens them really.
Yeah.
And they hate the idea of just reporting to the ether, not knowing who takes care of them, what's happening next, not having that connection. And especially during an era where a lot of us are working hybrid, or or working from home, establishing that employer to employee connection,
Yeah.
knowing that my case now is sitting with Erica, my case manager, and we can contact each other even if I'm anonymous. We can have an asynchronous conversation, that means that you can investigate the report, but I can reach out to you and understand where things are at. That experience is so crucial in order to establish the ongoing trust with a reporter.
And I really want to lean in on that piece, Neta, for a quick minute, because that is absolutely what we see in the culture data that we collect. When you ask an employee why they didn't report observed misconduct, their primary two reasons were a fear of retaliation, right? So something bad's going to happen to me, tied with nothing would happen anyway, so why should I bother, right? And that is that lack of trust in the system. That is that lack of faith in the process that as compliance professionals, we have to figure out how to tackle, because frontline employees are our very best eyes and ears who are they're going to tell us when they need help. They're going to tell us what's going wrong so that we can fix it easily and early before it blows up into some sort of massive reputational issue.
Yeah.
But if they're not comfortable using their voices, if they don't trust the tools, they're not going to pick them up.
And here technology can only help. It's there in order to give them a voice, and it's there in order to enable the human to human conversation, which is exactly how we come in, with technology that can truly do that. And at the same time, we need to also listen to what are the needs of modern ethics, integrity, compliance teams of today. And here we are having a completely different set of problems. They're also worried about underreporting. Today's most forward-looking compliance teams are worried about underreporting. They are worried about the blind spots.
Right.
And
what don't I know?
What is it that I don't know? Exactly, right? Like that they know that they don't know, and they cannot manage what they don't know. They can only manage what they know. So that is a concern, but also the fact that technology fails them today. The platforms they have, the legacy platforms they have in place today, are not supporting quality investigations. They're not injecting the content and what is needed in order to drive an investigation more quickly, more efficiently, and with more quality. For example, communicating with reporters, for example, automating a lot of the things that are done manually today in order for the case manager to focus on what's really important, which is supporting the reporter and getting to the bottom of the issue, and to resolution, which is what we want to see. They lack data. They lack good, rich data about what's really happening in the organization. And again, all of those things can be solved today if we are thinking about our digital infrastructure as one of the biggest enablers for the best ethics programs out there that are truly there to protect the company's ethical stance. And that is really, really important that we think about it. I always say it's like your compliance program. You can have the best chief compliance officer, you can have the best compliance program out there, and with Ethisphere's content and the data that you provide to Bella members, the best practices are very much there. But if your tracks are old, it's really hard for that train to ride.
Right.
You need the right infrastructure in place in order for your compliance program to truly shine. And that's why in our role today, we're thinking about what is the next generation infrastructure that we need to put in place.
Yeah. What is the piece that you guys have added to the platform
Sure.
the last couple of months that you are just bursting at the seams about?
So I'll give you a few highlights. First, it's the intake, right? So when we're thinking about intake channels and how can we make sure that people report, it's an app that adapts to the company's own code of conduct or code of ethics that enables people to come forward in three different ways. We call them go ahead, go anonymous, or go together. It's that direct employee to case manager connection, knowing who is my case manager and what's the high level status of my report and investigation. The two-way communication through a chat, even with anonymous reporters. So here's a great data point. More than 90% of anonymous reporters drop the process. So it's very hard to investigate anonymous
Incredibly
reports.
hard. Yeah.
Incredibly hard. It's one of the biggest pain points. Having that communication is key, and we do that through a chat where the reporter just get a notification, just like you will get a WhatsApp notification or a messenger notification on your phone. But that's not the only way. Today we do that through a variety of ways. An AI hotline where a voice bot is taking the reporter through a recorded experience, and we're about to release our reporting via Slack or Teams. So a dedicated channel in your Slack or in your Teams that is dedicated to reporting. So intake on the whole is something that we truly put emphasis on that. And then from a case management perspective, we today use AI for dynamic translations, which mean that ethics teams can converse with the individuals in their own language, get immediate translations of the reports, and the entire communication can happen in the native languages, even if they're different languages altogether. So that's a huge step forward. Automated routing, which means that the reports can reach the team that they need to reach. Obviously, compliance issues perhaps would reach a different team than HR issues, but having that routing in a dynamic way means that we can fit teams that are big or small, central or distributed. You can set up whichever ethics team, however you want it done, whatever your business objectives are, and the technology will adapt to you instead of your team adapting to the technology, which is very stiff and static, right? In many ways.
That's one of the things that I particularly appreciate, Neta, about the way that you all have structured the platform, and part of the reason why we were excited about this partnership opportunity between our two organizations. Because if I'm an investigator and I'm in the platform and I'm thinking to myself, I really want to make sure that I'm following up with this particular reporter, according to my company's guidelines or according to best practices, I have to go find those somewhere else, right? I have to leave the platform in order to be able to get my hands on that content. And part of what we've done together is we've taken Ethisphere's content on those topics and put it in the platform, right? So I don't have to go anywhere any longer. I can get my answer where I am, as opposed to having to go search it down and then come back and implement it myself.
We are so excited about this, Erica, because the Ethisphere Knowledge Center that now exists as an add-on on our case management means that investigators, even new investigators, for example, who are new to the profession or new to that particular team, can go and find the best practices of how to conduct an investigation and get access to content that is truly exclusive, where Ethisphere is has world reputation for, and just find that when and where they need it at the time that they need it during the investigation process. So I think those pointers, that almost training for case managers, is incredibly valuable and very, very unique. So this is a perfect example where technology meets content, and both are very unique and valuable.
And they're both there in service of the people who need them best, to make a really emotionally taxing and scary process easier on the people that we're asking to go through it.
100%.
Well, Neta, as I said at the top, you and I could talk about this for hours. But we will leave our Ethicast audience there, and I will invite Bill back on to tell everybody where to go for more information on the work that we are doing together.
Excited about this partnership, and thank you for having me on this Ethicast today.
To learn more about how Vault and Ethisphere are working together to advance business integrity and drive speak-up culture, keep your eyes peeled for more on this exciting partnership. And in the meantime, go to vaultplatform.com to book a demo or connect with your Bella engagement director to learn more. This has been the Ethicast. For more episodes, please visit the Ethisphere YouTube channel at youtube.com/ethisphere. And if this is your first time enjoying the show, please make sure to like and subscribe either on YouTube or on our podcasting platforms at Apple and Spotify. Thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, remember, strong ethics is good business.